As engineers, we have a responsibility for the impact that we make in the world.
It's about providing access in our sprawling city.
Connecting to schools, hospitals, universities, to get that genuine positive impact on people's lives.
I really do it for the people that are here. We want to support global communities
and help provide the resources in a way that best meets their needs.
Good afternoon and welcome to the third part of our look at the awards from last year. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our speakers here today. We've got an excellent lineup of award winners from last year. Firstly, we've got Salford City Council, who were successful in winning the Excellence in Planning Award last year. We've got Claire Thorne, who's the Chief Planning Officer. Claire is a Principal Planning Officer with over 20 years of experience. In planning and policy, both on local and regional levels. She's played a key role in shaping the development and strategic frameworks that support sustainable development and inclusive growth. And most recently, Claire has led on the implementation of Salford City's new social value planning policy requirements following the adoption of the Council's local plan in 2023. Her work reflects a strong commitment to embedding social value into the planning process and ensuring that development delivers meaningful benefits to communities. Claire is joined by Nina Howells, the Commercial Project Manager from Salford City Council. And Nina needs no introduction to those of us from the social value community. She's worked at Salford City Council for over 20 years, mainly in housing and regeneration, with the last 12 or so of those years working on projects and programmes related to social value and impact. She leads a range of place programmes from a social value perspective, and is working with officers from across Salford Council on strategy and practice to unlock opportunities for people, communities and local businesses. We're then moving on and welcome Lendlease, who were the winners regarding excellence in real estate. And I'm absolutely delighted that Lucille Watkins-Brazier is here, who's Head of Social Impact at Lendlease. Lucille heads a large team of social value practitioners working across Europe, the Middle East and Africa, and is responsible for delivering Lendlease's Europe's social sustainability strategy across construction, investment management, and the urban regeneration portfolio. So fantastic to have you here today. And lastly, before we move on to open questions from you, I'm very pleased to welcome Abdul Shiil, who's the co-founder of Saharan Care's community interest company, who won the SME and VCSE Leadership Award last year. I'm particularly interested to hear Abdul speak because I was one of the judges on the judging panel for that award last year, and I was particularly inspired by the application. Abdul leads the care organisation that's created jobs, delivering over 1 million hours of care and been recognised nationally for building genuine social value. So not only creating a business, filling a void in a sector where we desperately need capacity, but also doing that in such a way that they're actually delivering genuine social value in a very meaningful way. Absolutely delighted to welcome you here today. My name's Katrina Browning. I'm a public sector buyer for 30 years, and I'm head of procurement at Babergh Suffolk District Council. I'm an active member of the National Social Value Task Force. I'm very pleased to be here with the panel today. We'll pass over now to Claire for the first of the presentations. Please add your comments into the chat and any questions, and we'd welcome your questions to have that discussion with the panel at the end of the presentations. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Claire Thorne from Salford City Council. I'll just wait for my presentation to load up, and then I'll get going, just sort of explaining what's happened since we won the Excellence in Planning Award last year. So moving on to the first slide in the deck, just a quick recap on the 2024 submission. So at the point we submitted for the award, we had just adopted our local plan in the January 2023. So Salford's local plan forms parts of its development plan, and it's really the key document that decisions on planning applications are made in accordance with in the city. So within this plan, there's a policy which requires all major developments to submit a social value strategy. And major developments is quite broad, ranging from anything over 10 or more dwellings or 1,000 square metres of floor space. So recognising this was a new requirement, we published various documents to support planning applicants in developing their social value strategies. The key document here really being the guidance document, the guidance notes, and that really set out what social value is, why it's important in Salford, and particularly how to prepare a social value strategy, what it should include, what sort of actions and activities can be undertaken. It also set out what we expect in terms of the information to be provided and included some good practice benchmark targets. And at this point, we'd received around 50 social value strategies and had started to see the real impact of our policy and start to see it being implemented in practice. Next slide, please. So moving on to sort of our progress since last year, we've continued to receive a large number of social value strategies with major planning applications, and we're now up to around 80. We're starting to see schemes with social value commitments on site now being built out. And so we're starting to receive reports on the implementation of social value commitments, which is something we require in our planning conditions when approval is granted. We're still continuing to spend time and resources reviewing all the social value strategies that come to us, and we're providing detailed feedback to applicants to try and ensure we get better outcomes, try and get improved clarity in our social value strategies and greater precision around some of the commitments. We are now receiving some really well considered and ambitious social value strategies, and we're seeing developers in the city link up with programmes, organisations to deliver better outcomes all round. We've also provided some support to other local authorities in policy development, so really just explaining what experience we've had and how we've developed the policy and guidance around that. Next slide, please. So sort of lessons learned from a planning perspective and next steps. We are definitely still on a learning journey at Salford. We've made some great progress, but there's lots more to learn. I think we feel it's still important to invest time and resources in implementing the policy, reviewing social value strategies, providing detailed feedback and being clear about what changes we want made. We've started to try and spread our resources out across the wider team, so more people at the council are getting, in the planning team, are getting involved in looking at the social value strategies. We're trying to expand the knowledge, develop our experience and bring different perspectives to the assessment. We think that challenging the social value strategies and questioning is delivering better outcomes. We're seeing more precise targets coming through, more ambitious plans, but that does require quite a bit of time and effort. We found the benchmarks and guidance incredibly valuable as a sort of starting point, really, to consider whether social value strategies are sufficient, signposting the support that is out there, and how the different ways in which social value can be delivered by development. We've also spent quite a bit of time trying to work up some of the practical mechanics in implementing the policy. So major development is a very broad category, ranging from sort of 10 houses or a small extension to an industrial unit, right through to a very large scheme of up to 3,000 residential units or up to 10,000 square metre commercial. We've seen some very large schemes. So we are seeing a variety of development models, a variety of circumstances. We've developed some conditions we use to secure implementation. And kind of really just sort of working through some of the practical implementation points. And so in terms of what's next for us, I think as I said, we're seeing developers coming through now on site, implementing the commitment. So we want to try and develop a really clear template for developers to use in reporting, so we can get consistent information, we can be clear about what we expect and work efficiently going forward. And I think secondly, it's probably about gathering and being able to report on the success of the policy and what it's implemented. So we'd like to be in a position where we can easily track what's been delivered and where, in which ward, by what theme or outcome and the year. So just trying to really kind of streamline that process and be able to tell a story. So I'm going to pass on to Nina for the last couple of slides now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just take us through some of the plans we've got for social value next in Salford. So since winning the award for excellence in planning, we've been identifying ways that we can build on the work so far and identify resources to support delivery of social value through our planning policy, and really make sure that that the work that's being done by developers and contractors around social value is making a real difference to local communities. Our regeneration team have developed a strategic regeneration forum that will enable key sites in the city to be brought forward. And at the moment, we've got key partners involved on board from Peel and Muse, and that's also open to other partners to join at a later date. But social value is embedded within that forum to ensure that key development sites have a real focus on social value. We've also been developing a directorate of social value opportunities that highlights Salford's key priorities and identifies practical ways that developers and contractors can plan and deliver the social value in Salford. So at a grassroots level, some of our key community organisations are featured in there, and some of their practical ways that businesses can support them are highlighted there. We've also developed some town centre guides for Eccles, Swinton and Pendleton. We've worked with Savills Earth and our local VCSE infrastructure organisation, Salford CVS, which focuses on the hyperlocal, essentially developing with local community groups the practical things that social value could support them with, so that we can really focus on what the strengths are in the community and what the needs are that developers and contractors can work with them on with those really big regeneration projects. Salford CVS have really taken that on and are now looking at doing that for the rest of the city to make sure that that meaningful impact is felt through all development, and that'll be a real asset to developers and when they're making their local planning applications that'll feed in through the new local plan. We're also renewing our council-wide approach to social value, and we'll be developing an action plan that builds on our firm foundations over the next 12 to 18 months. So if we could pop onto the next slide, in terms of the legacy from that planning policy and from winning the award, for Salford, it means that the social value that's created is really turned into impact for Salford and delivers benefits over and above the bricks and mortar that come through our planning system. Going forward, we'll be able to understand what those benefits are above and beyond the homes and the commercial space and the growth in the city. And we can then influence that to further align with the community and business needs. So far, construction industry has been really positively engaging with that policy and has been really supportive. And as Claire mentioned earlier, we've been working together, providing some really quite detailed feedback on what we'd like to see and how developers can connect with our local programmes and organisations to really make a difference. We've found that it is building trust and transparency in the development process, and communities are able to see the social value statements through our planning portal. We've also been approached by lots of other councils who are thinking about doing this. So that kind of pioneering approach has been interesting to see how other places are adopting it and thinking about social value through the planning system. I suppose in terms of the award itself, in terms of momentum, it showed the benefits of what embedding social value in the planning system can bring, and both internally and externally, that's allowed us to build on our really firm foundations of social value and push things further to make sure that we see that meaningful impact in our communities and for local businesses. Thanks, everyone.
Many thanks, Nina. Moving on from planning, I know at Babergh Suffolk District Councils we're really keen to hear your presentation today, because we're very been watching Salford and the approach that you've got, and sort of learning from the work that you've done over the years. So it's great to hear that. We'll take questions at the end, so I'll move on now to Lucille to hear about excellence in real estate.
Thank you, Katrina. Could I have my first slide, please? Lovely. So I won't take a huge amount of time today, but I'm going to just provide a bit of an update in terms of what Lendlease has been up to since we won our award. Next slide, please. So Lendlease, interestingly, and for those who don't know, are an Australian property developer headquartered in Sydney. And we've been present in the UK market for about 30 years. And we've also got about 30 years worth of experience of delivery of social value in the UK, although it wouldn't have been called such then. One of the first activities that Lendlease did in the UK was working on a project over in Kent called Blue Water. Some of you may be aware of it, a huge shopping centre. And attached to that, we designed our first employment skills and ex-offender programme. And so it's been almost non-stop activity from that point onwards. Although that being said, we had actually never submitted ourselves for any kind of social value award before. So you can imagine our surprise and our absolute delight when we were selected as winners of Excellence in Real Estate for 2024. And actually it was a real it was a really pivotal moment for us for a number of reasons, because the first award that we'd secured, which was absolutely fantastic, but also it signalled almost the finish line as to a number of very sort of significant strategic activities that we had ongoing at that time. We, in 2020, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but in 2020 we had designed a social value / sustainability strategy for all of our global operations. And that was a 5-year programme due to come to an end in June 25, which it did. That was a whole range of social value activity, but was centred on 3 pillars: community inclusion, wellbeing, and support for sustainable economic growth. And so our award submission really focused on those elements and really thinking about where we had pushed ourselves and excelled over the previous then 4 and a bit years to really drive outcomes against those pillars. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, coming to the end of that strategic 5-year period, we also landed in a very significant period of change for Lendlease. So in May 2024, an announcement was made that our global operations would be significantly restructured and that we would sell the UK construction division of Lendlease in this region, which then later meant that the UK construction business moved across to Atlas Holdings. What that meant in practice was that we now were repositioning as a master developer in this region. So less focus on construction and vertical build and more focus on the earlier stages of development. And then in May this year, we announced a very exciting new partnership with the Crown Estate. And those of you that listen to the news will have heard quite a bit about the Crown Estate in the last few days. They've been featured quite a lot. But Lendlease have entered into a joint venture partnership with schemes across the UK. Super exciting, and fair to say new horizons for both the Crown Estate and for Lendlease, but very pleased to say that we are both very similarly minded insofar as social value. And on a personal note, I was very encouraged by the Crown Estate's ethos and their commitment to prosperity for the nation. So exactly the kind of partner that we would have hoped to secure. Next slide, please. So just coming back to our strategic pillars for a second, one of those was for Lendlease to commit to the creation of $250 million, Australian dollars worth of social value outside of anything contractual or legal requirements between 2020 and 2025. Absolutely delighted to say that as a global team, we achieved 286 million, or 113% of that target. Absolutely fantastic. Lots of very huge amount of effort from the teams across all of our regions, and again a really important moment to stand back and reflect on what we have achieved so far and where we want to go in the future. So I think in essence the last 18 months has been very pivotal, lots of change, lots of flex, but also lots of opportunity that has come along with that. And so whilst the shape of our team has changed quite significantly, we're now in a really fortunate position to be able to stand back and to decide exactly what we want to do and who we want to be going forward. And I think most importantly, we're able to look at all of the things that we have learned along the way and make sure that we're designing with people first and keeping that close to mind. Next slide, please. So transfer of over 700 employees, in short, reposition as master developer, end of that strategy, time to begin anew. Yeah, really important moment for us. We're still in the thick of it at the moment, so the new strategy is under design as we speak, but hopefully next year I'll be able to talk to lots of you at conference and be able to update you on everything that we've been up to in the meanwhile. Really delighted to have had the benefit of the award to really cement and solidify the commitment of the team and to really demonstrate to our peers, to our colleagues, to others across real estate just how committed we are to social value and how committed we are to ensuring that the communities we create are inclusive and that have the tools that they need to thrive. So before finishing, I just wanted to leave a few little tips, tricks, and ideas for if you choose to apply, or if you are thinking about applying in future. So I'll just scoot through these. Please take the time to read the award criteria. It's super important. There is a lot of nuance between the categories, so just make sure that the category that you enter is the correct one. Make sure that you have adequate time. We're all busy, and I remember the deadlines creeping up very quickly, so please make sure that you give yourself adequate time, and really think about, you know, what are you most proud of. It doesn't need to be a grand gesture. Sometimes just being consistent and doing a good enough job can create really exceptional results. Also, I think it's important to evaluate what have you demonstrably achieved. So, you know, we, particularly those of us that work in this space, we tend to overlook a lot of the day-to-day or the business as usual, but actually a lot of that is incredibly meaningful. So I would advise you to seek advice from other people if you can. For me, write it once. Don't spend hours and hours on it. I think the panel are looking for credibility rather than polish. I think it's all about a compelling story, what, where, who, when, why, and all of that stuff. But most importantly, the impact that you've created. And be bold. Don't be afraid to celebrate those achievements that you've created, small or large. Because as I said, even the smallest of interventions can actually be transformative for others. I think I am done, but thank you very much for your time, and good luck.
Many thanks, Lucille. The questions are mounting up in the Q&A, but we'll ask those at the end of the presentations, but please feel welcome to add any to them. Abdul, do you mind if I pass across to yourself to share with us your progress and why you won the award last year for SME and VCSE leadership?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Katrina. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abdul. I am the co-founder and director of Saharan Cares. We are a social enterprise based in London, and we were the fortunate recipient winners of the SME VSC Award. So if we can go to the next slide. At Saharan, we see ourselves as a bridge between sort of two neglected communities. So we've got the refugees on one side, we've got the elderly on the other side. And we are able to bring these two communities together through love, compassion, and respect. Now, the reason why we set up Saharan Cares is we moved to the UK as refugees ourselves, as a family, and having to rely on welfare, you name, free milk vouchers, free school meals, free everything. We used it as a family to help us settle and integrate. So a few years after that, we said to ourselves, okay, taken all the welfare we had, now let's put something back in. And that's where the idea of Saharan Cares came. We are, a social enterprise where we offer care and support to the elderly. But again, like I mentioned, we do this by giving employment to refugees. What we do is we train them how to speak in English. We help them qualify in social care, and then we send them out to the community as care workers. Next slide. Our impact since we've started in 2012, we've created over 400 jobs. And by the way, these are all jobs for refugees. We've trained over 600 women. We've impacted over 12,000 lives. We've indirectly impacted over 12,000 lives. 90% of our workforce have been with us for at least 5 years. And if you guys know anything about social care, it's so difficult. I think retention rate is at between 25 to 27%. So for us, we're at 90%. And really, that's the one stat that we are super proud of. When you said yes to a community who's often hears no every day, they pay you back in loyalty, they pay you back in hard work, they pay you back in dedication, and they pay you back in excellent care. On their days off, they would, if one of our clients goes into hospital, on their days off, they will chip in money together and visit that client in the hospital. We didn't tell them to do that, but it's that cultural thing of visiting someone when they're sick, being there for them. And I can tell you guys hundreds of stories. And today we're a team of 83 sort of care work. As of today, we're about 86 now. We hired 3 more refugees that are starting with us on Monday, so we're excited about that. So next slide, please. Yeah. So since the award, we were able to join a new framework, which was something that we're super excited about. We've delivered over 130,000 hours of care in the last 12 months. And now we're sort of pivoting and expanding into sort of supported living. So looking after people suffering from learning disabilities and mental health through homes and facilities that we manage. So the last 12 months, we've renovated 2 properties that we're excited about. And then now just reaching out to local authorities to begin that work. And the first 8 years of our organization, nobody knew who we are, and nobody knew who we were. And I still think that not a lot of people know our organization because we were sort of working on trying to perfect the model. But in the last year or so, we've been invited to speak at international conferences, to share our stories, and you don't take those opportunities, for granted. So even the one today, I'm super grateful to be around here and speaking in front of you guys. Next slide. We've done a survey with our care team, asking them not your regular survey about work, but just about their personal life. Because again, 100% of our workforce are all refugees. So we just wanted to know, what was it like coming here? And we wanted to hear from them. So we took their responses and put it into a little word cloud. So these are some of the responses that came from them. They feel empowered and valued that they're working. They feel that they belong to a community, because there is nothing more powerful than economic empowerment. Nobody wants any handouts. You don't want to wait. You just want that first chance. And when you're given that chance, you feel like you belong. And I feel like that's our sweet spot as an organization, is being a launching pad for their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Like, what can we do for them? because we understand that as refugees ourselves. On a personal level, I had mentors and teachers who believed in me and saw things that I did not see in myself. So you never forget that, and you always want to build our company ethos around those values. But for a lot of them, what they mentioned was that they're proud of their children, because you don't risk your life for yourself. You risk it because you want to make sure that that next generation has the opportunities that you didn't get. And speaking about children, some of our carers, we often open our offices up for our kids of our carers to come and do their homework, because sometimes, they might not have access to Wi-Fi. So we can come do their homework, half term, spend time with us. We will mentor them. And what happens when you build those informal type of structures? If we can go to the next slide. Well, those same children graduate from Oxford. This is the daughter of one of our carers, who graduated from Oxford. We had graduated from Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, you name it, some of the biggest prestigious universities in the country. And that's what I'm excited about the most, is seeing that next generation of, mom came as a refugee, struggled, worked super hard so that the sons and the daughters can have a better future. And now, Hannah here will be going to UCLA. She had a scholarship to study commercial law at UCLA. And this is just one of the many stories that we're super proud of as an organization. It's saying, like I mentioned before, it's saying yes to a group of people who are often used to saying no. And when they feel loved and integrated, and, a lot of press taking place recently about refugees and not integrated, we're here to show the other side of what happens when real integration happens, when real cohesion happens, and the beauty that can come from it. So really grateful for you all to listen to me. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Abdul. What a fantastic legacy to end the presentations on today. We've got a number of questions here, which I'll ask the panel. But Abdul, as you've just finished your presentation, do you mind if I start with you first?
Yeah.
Such a fantastic story to end your slides on. But do you mind if I just start to expand on that a bit further? I've lost my question. Here it is. So for Abdul, we've heard about the pride your team feels in their children. How important is generational impact when we talk about social value?
I think that's super important for us as an organization, and it's why we exist. We're big on social mobility because I am a product of social mobility. The local authority that we used to go and claim welfare from, the local authority that we used to go and get milk vouchers from, well, we now go as job creators. We now want to tender with them, and you never forget that. So it's wanting to create those pathways for a lot of those people. I'm someone who, again, came to the UK, English wasn't first language, but then you learn and you acclimatize quickly, and then like you go through life. And now I'm doing a doctorate part-time and while running the organization, because I see all these opportunities and I'm always able to compare what life could have been had I not been in the UK. So when you come with that mindset, I promise you, you don't take nothing for granted. Every day is a blessing. Every day is full of gratitude. And it's what can you do for your team to have that as well. So that's the bedrock of our organization.
Thank you. We've got a further question here from Chad Bentley. How have you found the partnership working or being part of tender frameworks?
I think with local authorities, because we work with a lot of local authorities, and what we've found is it's budget constraints everywhere. And yeah, it's great that they want to know about the social work, the social value that you're doing, but really it comes down to price for them at the end of the day, because that's what they're after, because they've got, and you understand that. But it's how do you create within the tender processes a pathway of showcasing all these extra work, because again, had we not existed, all of them would have relied on welfare. And that's what we're trying to change. So how do you articulate that in a tender process that has, word limits, and you're trying to cramp everything in and I get why those word limits are there, because they're going through so many applications, but it's how do you create within those tender processes to show the real stories, the real genuine stories, and bringing those to life. I think that would be super important.
Thank you. And lastly, before we move on, there's a question here that I've posted From your perspective, what would you like to see from commissioners, policymakers, or business leaders to unlock more social value?
I think for us, there are, what I would say is higher communities are often overlooked. And because sometimes it's easy to say no, because there's that initial fear of, okay, well, it's going to take time. But I promise you, if you're patient enough, what you get back is tenfold. What you get back is a motivated workforce. What you get back are people who are willing to work as hard as they can, because you gave them the opportunity when the world said no. So it's hiring those, and there are pockets of communities out there. And also the last thing is, when creating these tender processes, involve the communities. There are community ambassadors in every local community that have that knowledge that commissioners might not have. Because how do you bring those people into that process to then build a really cohesive tender process that encapsulates the whole community, and will add a lot of value as well. So those are just my 2 points.
Thank you. Lucille, do you mind if we come to you next? There's a question here from Marlene Botan, who's asking, does this mean that Lendlease is still staying in the UK market?
Yes, we are. Hi, Marlene. We are staying in the UK market. There has been a lot of press over the last year trying to decipher just what our strategic shift means. But in essence, all of our urban regeneration portfolios will continue as planned. It is the construction part of our business that has been sold. Construction, formerly Lendlease Construction, is now Bovis Construction. All of those 700 people that I mentioned are doing extraordinarily well. We still share office space with them, and they are thriving. So yes, is the short answer.
Thank you. The social value delivery that you outlined there, particularly exceeding your target, was really quite extraordinary. In that extraordinary delivery of social value over the last 5 years, is there a particular project or aspect of the delivery that you're particularly proud of?
Oh gosh, Katrina, there's so many. I think one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of is that we were able to set that target as a global function. So that's not something that you see particularly often. And because of the nature of our business, we operate in Australia, the Americas, Asia, and Europe. And the differentials there in terms of how we think about social value quite significant. So being able to set a global objective and then achieve that in light of all of those differences is quite significant. In terms of programs, I think probably one of my favourites, we did an affordable retail incubator for refugees just prior to COVID, and it was absolutely incredible. And lots of the people that we worked with during that program have then moved on to the affordable retail units on one of our developments and are thriving. And one of them has actually just decided to take on a second premises. So absolutely delighted for him. But to Abdul's point, it really makes a difference when you can actually close the loop and see just what a helping hand can achieve when you're willing to work with people.
Thank you. What's been your most significant frustration to embed social values so fundamentally into your culture? And how did you overcome that challenge?
So I think a couple of things. So because of the nature of our business, until recently, we were what we called an integrated business. So we had a construction arm, a development arm, and also an asset management arm. And that was a very positive thing in many ways, but it also meant that we, in essence, had 3 businesses at very different places in relation to social value, all existing within one organisation. And so trying to find the opportunities for all of them to do well at pace, it really meant that you kind of had to meet each of them where they were, and that meant that there were some differences in terms of delivery and different challenges that existed within each of those businesses. So I think for us that's probably been one of the bigger ones, and then that coinciding with the fact that the UK is much further ahead in terms of social value than our other regions. So there is very little sort of structural or governance-led approach to social value elsewhere in the world. So Australia has a social procurement policy, if you like, a piece of legislation, but barring that, there is very little in terms of frameworks or guidance. So it's happening, it's coming, but it's just a lot slower than we're used to here in the UK. So again, trying to react and to work alongside when actually one region is significantly further forward than others. Yeah, it was quite tricky and remains so.
Thank you. Nina and Claire, I've got a couple of questions here for you. The next one's from Guy, who's asking a question to Claire. There are some concerns when developing the social value requirements for planning that it would lead to more work for planning officers. Has it? And is it worth it?
Well, that's a good question. Thanks, Guy. Has it led to more work? I think, as I suggested in my presentation, there's definitely a resource of time and building up our knowledge of this area that we've invested in. So for definite, it does take time to implement a new policy requirement like this, I think. But in planning, we're quite used to that. There's quite often new requirements coming in that we have to get our heads around and put some extra time in. But I think in Salford, we've had some good support from others across the directorate who are kind of working on some of the programs and initiatives, so have been able to sort of help us work through some of that. Is it worth it? Yes, absolutely. I mean, it feels like we're getting social value strategies back that have got real commitments that are happening. They're now on site. Things are being delivered. Things that wouldn't have necessarily happened without that policy that requires developers to think about that in Salford when they're coming along and proposing schemes. So I think the answer is probably yes and yes, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question's from Jessica Sang. She's really interested to hear about Salford's planning approach to securing social value, and was wondering to what extent this is common across other local planning authorities.
So yeah, that's another good question. I think when we went through the examination of the plan, which was back in 2022, and we, as a statutory development plan, you have to go through an examination in public prior to adoption. I think the inspector examining the plan was quite a new sort of concept to them in planning, but I think we were probably one of the first sort of to progress with this type of policy. I think, as we said in the presentation, we have had conversations with various local authorities over the last 12-18 months who are thinking about pursuing similar types of policies. So I think it is coming through more and more, and I believe Manchester City Council, our neighbours, have just got a social value requirement proposed in their draft local plan. So yes, certainly it's coming through, I think. I hope that answers okay. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you. To Nina and Claire again, we've got a question here from Jane Thompson, who's asking, what social value benefit activities are you seeing from the private sector, consultants, suppliers, etc., in their responses?
So I'm happy to take that one, Katrina. Thanks for the question, Jane. We're seeing lots of different commitments. Our policy refers to the TOM system, so we're seeing lots of jobs, lots of apprenticeships. Claire and the team do refer developers and contractors to our Build Salford programme, which is one of our flagship employment and skills programmes, to make sure we're making that connection between the infrastructure that exists already and those commitments that are being made. We're seeing lots of community projects and donations, school engagement. There's a wide range of measures and delivery activities that are being proposed. But we are hopeful that with the social value directory and the town centre guides that I mentioned earlier, that those commitments can actually become much more specific and much more local to Salford in the planning stage, so that we see in our social value statements things that really practically will make a difference to our communities, our local voluntary sector organisations and local businesses. So we're seeing a wide range of things, but we're hoping that we can make them even more Salford specific as we move on.
Thank you. A question for myself, just to expand really on what we've said there in terms of how have developers responded to the new policy. I mean, as was one of the forefront runners in terms of developing planning policy regarding social value, what has been that response back from your local developers?
Generally, it's been really supportive. Most developers and contractors are already delivering an element of social value in their projects, in their builds. So the fact that we've got a social value strategy process means that they're actually able to articulate that at the planning stage, which I think I mentioned builds trust in communities. So generally, developers are doing this anyway, and it's just a case of getting their heads around a new planning policy, a new way of articulating that, and doing it early on in the process. Generally, commitments might be thought of during the construction phase, but actually what we're seeing with this is it actually gives developers time to think about that early on and really plan that and make sure that they're able to deliver on that during all phases of the build right into the in use. So on the whole, the response has been really good.
Thank you. Can I ask this question for myself? What support is available to developers to help them to meet the requirements of Policy F2?
Would you like me to have a go at answering that one? Thank you. Thanks, Katrina. I mean, I think the guidance that we produced has been very helpful. That was published just after the local plan was adopted, and that really sets out how to tackle producing a social value strategy alongside your planning application, what we're expecting, what initiatives, programs, schemes are available that can help with implementation. So I think that has been very helpful. Also, alongside that is a local needs analysis, which again provides developers with a starting point as to exploring the local needs in their area. And I think, as Nina said, we're progressing with various tools and pieces of work that will continue to support the development industry in kind of working up their social value strategies. And I think finally, just from an officer point of view as well, just trying to continue to provide that detailed feedback and guidance and support, and being really clear in our responses when we're reviewing the social value strategies is another way that we can provide support in helping implement this policy. And I think we are continuing to see that time as time well invested in securing better outcomes. So we are reviewing all the strategies, we're looking at all the commitments in them, we're looking at the area the development's situated, and really kind of giving it time and proper consideration. So yeah, those are the main things I would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, before we close today's session, a question for all of you. So to put you all back on the hot seat, if there's one action you'd like people to take away today from today's session, what would it be? Abdul, do you mind if I come to you first?
Yes. Yeah, I suppose whenever I'm invited to these places, but my perspective is always, representing my community and always showing the perspective of, what happens when the other side of the refugee story. So that's one thing for me that's super important. I'm super passionate about. Is showing, there's a lot of negative press taking place within a particular community. So it's wanting to show that success story. But then the other is a challenge to the audience. We often come to these places and we hear all these stories. So it's taking action, and a lot of there's excellence taking place in multiple sectors. So it's taking action and not waiting to say I'm gonna put this aside, but implement some of these changes. I think those are my two key things.
Thank you. Lucille, do you mind if we come to you next?
Yep. Similar vein, really. I think being bold. So through the past hour, the word that has resonated with me most strongly is boldness. Once upon a time, Abdul's organisation didn't exist, and it took him and I think his family making the decision to do something different, in a similar way to Salford. And for us, I think we always try to put our best foot forward and to be bold. So I think it's that. I think it's being willing to put yourself out there and to try new things.
Thank you. Claire? So
Hi, thank you.
If there's one action you'd like people to take away today, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it, again, from a sort of a planning perspective, it is about being ambitious. And I think trying to find the people and working across your organisation to deliver something like this feels really vital. Finding those teams within the council who have knowledge and expertise on working closely with the communities, delivering particular initiatives and programmes that can support our sort of higher level objectives from a planning point of view, and just really trying to link up. I think for us, it's about working across the organisation and linking up to make the outcomes really positive. So I guess, yeah, those two things really from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nina?
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's about making it meaningful. It's about understanding what communities' strengths are, who are the community connectors you can work with to deliver real meaningful impact. It's got to be tailored to the project and the hyperlocal, and that's my plea. Let's make it meaningful and positive and bold.
Thank you. Can I thank you all so much for your time today, not only for taking the time to put your applications in last year, but to come back this year and to share with us your approaches and your steps that you're now taking. I think it's a fantastic message to end on in terms of about being bold and being meaningful. And I love the line in your slides, Lucille, when you referred to we change the world one action at a time. I think that's a great message to take away. So thank you so much for everybody joining us today. We'll close the session now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.